And welcome back to the Popcorn Conspiracy on CentralCoastRadio.com. Well, right now we're going to take a look at a brand new horror film that is in cinemas called Evil Dead Rise. Now, if you're a horror fan, this will be one of your most anticipated films of 2023 because this is the fifth installment in the Evil Dead franchise. But unlike other horror franchises, there's been big gaps between these Evil Dead films coming out. Now, in 2013, we were lucky enough to get another Evil Dead film, and there was a promise of a sequel to that, but it never ever came about. So, this is probably the best that we're going to get from that. Sam Raimi has suddenly dropped Evil Dead Rise on everybody. Is it a reboot? Is it a sequel? Well, there'll be a little bit of debate about that, but pretty much all of the characters in this film are new to the franchise. And those characters are Beth, played by Lily Sullivan, who has been away touring with bands and seems to have the picturesque lifestyle. She returns back to LA to visit her older sister, Ellie, played by Alyssa Sutherland. And things aren't good between the two of them. Ellie's life has kind of fallen apart while Beth has been away. She's finding herself now as a single mum, bringing up her children Bridget, played by Gabrielle Eccles, Danny, played by Morgan Davis, and Cassie, played by Nell Fisher. Now, she's also pretty angry at her sister. She kind of makes comments that her sister has wasted her life being in bands and stuff like that, but really, she's kind of jealous that Beth has been out there living her life, but she is also hurt by the fact that Beth hasn't taken the time to get to know what's been going on in Ellie's life or anything like that. A lot has happened, and Beth is completely unaware of what has been happening. Now, when they get together, at first it seems like it's going to be all nice. It starts to turn a little bit nasty, but then an even worse thing happens because during an earthquake, her three children discover this demonic book, and soon there is a flesh-eating demon loose in the apartment building, which has been severely damaged by the earthquake. And to be honest, it wasn't much to write home about in the first place. It was kind of all run down. So the earthquake has left them trapped inside the building now with this flesh-eating demon. Now, it is directed by Lee Cronin, who has done a couple of good supernatural thriller horror films leading into this. And he has done an absolutely amazing job with this film. The horror fandom and era is kind of a hard fandom to impress. There are a lot of people out there who will go and see a new horror film and they'll be bagging it before they've even left the cinema, especially if it's from a much loved franchise like the Evil Dead franchise. But we're kind of lucky here because I think Lee Cronin taps into something that we haven't been getting recently in the horror world, and that is he's put together quite a nasty film. So often these days when Hollywood does a horror film, they kind of like to nice it up or make it political. He hasn't done that with Evil Dead Rise at all. This is an old-fashioned, nasty horror film. Plot-wise, there may not be a lot there, but what is there works really, really well. I love the fact that for a majority of the characters in this film are related, because what this demon does is kind of turn families against each other, and that is so obvious here. And just because there's young cast members doesn't seem to matter to Lee Cronin. He goes full on with this film. To be honest, he almost puts his child actors through absolute hell. There is so much fake blood in this film. It's just phenomenal how much fake blood gets thrown onto the cast here. But I kind of like the fact that the film isn't a nice film. This is supposed to be a nasty franchise, and I'm glad that they've kept that going. The child actors here, Gabrielle Eccles, Morgan Davis, and Nell Fisher, are absolutely amazing. This is Nell Fisher's first ever movie, and she's been thrown completely into the deep end. There's not only is the horror graphic, but there's a lot of psychological horror in this film as well, with like mothers turning on children and stuff like that. And the cast are brilliant. There's also a very large Australian cast here. Morgan Davis, who plays Danny, is Australian, as is Alyssa Sutherland and Lily Sullivan as well. So there's a lot of Aussies in this cast, and they do amazingly well. I have to take my hat off to Lily Sullivan and Alyssa Sutherland. Yeah, I know you can get those names mixed up pretty quickly. They do an absolutely amazing job in this film. This wouldn't have been an easy film to act in. Like I've already mentioned, there is a lot of fake blood. There is a lot of gore in this film, but there's also a lot of psychological tension. There's a lot of scenes in this with people yelling at each other, and just really, really tense scenes. And I think that really works. And in fact, I think it actually heightens the tension and the suspense that you get from the supernatural element to this film as well. It's very, very rare where you sit down and start to talk about how good the acting is in a horror film. But here, the acting is absolutely sublime. Like I said, I love the horror element to this film. It is particularly nasty, so if you don't like gore and you can't stand really confronting full-on horror, then perhaps this isn't the film for you. But if you're a true horror fan out there and you love the Evil Dead franchise, this is a film that you're going to have to see, because I think it's a film that is going to impress a lot of people. I speak to a lot of horror fans at film festivals like Monster Fest that are really hardcore horror fans, and this is the kind of film that they've been calling out for. They've been calling out for a film that really wants to push the envelope and go back to that old style of horror rather than this new breed of political horror that we've seen coming out of Hollywood. So I think they're going to be generally impressed by Evil Dead Rise. Lee Cronin really shows that he is a director to watch with this film, and as I said, the cast are absolutely amazing. So sit down, strap yourself in. You're going to go for a real horror thrill ride with Evil Dead Rise. And I've got to say, straight after, we're going to take a track in a moment from the Evil Dead franchise, but straight after that, we're actually going to sit down, and I had the opportunity to interview both Alyssa and Lily. So we're going to talk to them a little bit about what it was like being part of the Evil Dead Rise cast. You're listening to CentralCoastRadio.com. This is the Popcorn Conspiracy, and we'll be back in just a moment with Alyssa and Lily.